Welcome back to episode 2 of season 2 of Behind the Ball. We're going to be talking about Liverpool, our top 4 predictions, and a couple of underrated players in the league. Right, so starting with Liverpool, Zach. Obviously, famously, Trent, Salah and Van Dijk are all out of contract. There's been a lot of rumours, or there was a lot of rumours in January of certain players leaving, obviously Darwin Núñez being one of them, 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗱, and a couple of other names on there as well. It feels as though, despite obviously really good success in the league and possibly in other competitions such as the Champions League and possibly winning the 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 coming up, there could be quite a lot of change that happens towards the end of the season. We've kind of phrased it as a what would you do? So, Zach, firstly, what would you do? Van Dijk, Salah, Trent.
Obviously, I think kind of everyone at Liverpool wants them to stay. I mean, if they didn't, I think it's a bit mental. But I think we are in but I think it's not within the realms of possibility that all three of them leave. I think Trent's definitely gone. I think Salah's definitely gone. And so I think it's just kind of whether Van Dijk will go. And if I'm honest, if you're Van Dijk and you're seeing like the two best players at the club leave, you're kind of like, why do I want to stay, sort of thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if he left, but I think he's also the most likely to stay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think, obviously Trent seemingly has gone to Real Madrid, possibly in his head, possibly within a contract terms as well. The Salah situation is the one that I can't really understand what's going on, because one of the best players in the world right now, one of the best players in the league. For me, it seems like a no-brainer for Liverpool to just, you know what, here's a 2-year extension, here's a load of money. After the 2 years, we can see what's what again. But, you might not get the same amount of money as you'll get for the next 2 years, because I believe he's earned it. I mean, we talked about it on a previous podcast again. He's had like 8 seasons in a row of like 18-plus goals. Who's done that? Very few people, if anyone.
He's the sort of player that if you were running a club, you'd go, here's a blank contract, what do you want?
Yeah, and like a couple of other people have mentioned it as well, of like to sign a player like Salah would cost so much money, and yet there wouldn't be a transfer fee with this one. It would just be a weekly wage packet. Now, obviously, I know there's a couple of other things that, if you give Salah a load of money, other players are going to want some more money, etc., etc. But yeah, for me, it seems like a no-brainer for Liverpool to just say, like, here, as you say, blank contract. I think Van Dijk, despite how good Salah is, I think Van Dijk is actually the most important one out of the three. I think if they lose Van Dijk, I think, not that the club will change, but I think Liverpool's defence has been pretty good this season, it's fair to say. But I just think so much of that comes from Van Dijk. He's so much better than pretty much every other centre-back in the league right now, I'd say anyway. Like, he's so assured, obviously, we mentioned it before, but in the air, he's going to win it. He's so quick. He reads the game fantastically. I think he's the one that Liverpool should focus on. But if they don't keep... They're probably not going to keep Trent, are they?
No.
But I think if they don't keep those two, there is going to be a significant shift. And I'm not sure if they'll reinvest to get the similar type of players like... they're two world-class players, and I don't think they're going to reinvest to sign another 2 world-class players in the summer if they were both to leave, because especially as the fact that they're not going to go out for any money. It would be on free transfers, which is just insane.
What's more mentioned is like, what, in the last summer they rejected, 150, 200 million for Salah, and now they're going to let him go to the same club for free, basically. It's quite frankly ridiculous. And I think kind of underlying kind of Liverpool do need a little bit of a rebuild as well, because I think you've got your 3 main players leaving, so that's obviously 3 players you need to replace, and then you probably need to replace Andy Robertson. Also, the fact they rejected 75 million quid for Darwin Núñez blows my mind.
Yeah, especially as it looks like he's going to leave either.
He sits on the bench
in the summer. Yeah,
so that's ridiculous. They probably need a striker. Luis Diaz, I think, is a good stopgap to kind of getting a striker, but I don't think...
But again, he's rumoured to leave at the end of this season as well.
So it's kind of... They do need quite a considerable... Or they will need quite a considerable rebuild. But what I would say is, for a time to need a rebuild, is probably Liverpool are in the best situation, because they'll probably go far in the Champions League. They might win it. They're going to win the league. And so there's no kind of better time to be able to go, come join Liverpool, because the form speaks for itself. But I genuinely think they probably need 5 or 6 players once the main 3 leave.
Yeah, and I've got written down here, obviously you mentioned that Darwin Núñez is probably going to leave. You've got 𝗕𝗹𝗹 who's probably going to leave, and Joe Gomez, and obviously you mentioned Diaz as well, all rumoured to leave. There'll probably be a couple that aren't rumoured to leave that will leave as well. So, yeah, as
Jota's
you say,
rumoured to leave as well. Arsenal looking at Jota apparently as well.
Yeah. So, as you say, rebuild is needed. If you were Liverpool, who would you focus your attention on?
So I've done like a kind of Football Manager wish list. Kind of, if this was Football Manager and you were Arne Slot, this is what you would ask for. I think there's some room to be quite clever as well, because I think you could look at players like Ola Aina, who are on a free, and kind of that's a pretty good replacement for Trent. Obviously, it's not the same, but then I'd actually say kind of left back would be more of a pressing issue than right back, because Connor Roberts.
Swansea banger, mate.
Connor Bradley is he's established himself as like a good Premier League right back. He's obviously nowhere near Trent, but kind of if he was to fit in for a season or two, I don't think it would be the end of the world. I think Robertson is kind of on his way out. He said what he was known for was millions of assists. Got no assists this season. He's in and out of the squad for 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶. So I think they should be looking at someone like Anthony Robertson or Milos Kerkez. I think that would be quite a good kind of, not like for like, but kind of old Robertson like for like, kind of bombing up and down. And I think they would probably be quite expensive. I think you're probably spending 40-50 million quid on either of them. I think then obviously they need a centre back. Again, looking at Bournemouth, Dean Huijsen having an unbelievable season. He's got a £55 million release clause. Obviously not Van Dijk, but kind of if you're kind of building for the future, Dutch as well, kind of.
It's not a bad replacement, is it?
No, it's not a bad replacement. And then kind of, I also think they need depth for 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶, because Slot clearly doesn't trust Endo, and he's also like 32, and so 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 is being run into the ground, and so they need, not only do they need like cover and kind of someone to someone to challenge him.
Yeah.
But they need to be good enough. Like, so I think you need to be looking at someone like a believer and 𝗕𝗹𝗹 Palacios from Bayer Leverkusen, who, if 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 wasn't there, you wouldn't feel kind of the difference. You could even go mental. I mean, he'd cost probably about 100 million quid. Even go for like a Bruno G. But I think that's quite mental. And then on the right, there's kind of 3, I reckon, you could go for. Kind of 2 a lot more attainable than the other. But as I said, if you've won the Premier League, potentially won the Champions League, then you know you've got a lot of pull power. I think you could look at Bryan Mbeumo and Semenyo. Kind of, they'd probably cost about 50 million quid as well. Like each, you obviously wouldn't buy them both, but I think Mbeumo would be the best, because kind of, he plays right winger, and he's quite similar to Salah, but he can also fill in up front, which is kind of not being the Liverpool blueprint, but they kind of, all for the last, since Klopp had like a dynamic striker who can like float in between the position, which I think would work quite well. And then if you're going a bit mental, go to Real Madrid and give them like 100 million quid for Rodrigo, because kind of their front 3 is made up of 2 left wingers and a right winger, and so that you could kind of disrupt the boat, maybe kind of, cause a goodwill with Real Madrid if they're getting Trent. Give us a bit of for Rodrigo, and then, or if you want cheaper, you go Liam Delap. But yeah, so I think there's quite a lot of additions that are needed. I mean, I've not really gone into kind of the replacements for your 𝗕𝗹𝗹s, but kind of that would need to be done as well.
Yeah, and it feels as though there's going to be quite a lot of clubs that are going to be looking to rebuild or restructure in the summer as well. I think that this summer is going to be really key, because we've seen Man City win the title 4 seasons in a row, but every single time they bring in good players after they win the league, and obviously it's not dead certain that Liverpool are going to win the league, but they're definitely the favourites.
It would be a huge upset if they didn't.
Yeah, but obviously last time they won the league, they didn't sign anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely impacted Klopp's kind of the last couple of years, especially, because
not really signing anyone this season either.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely going to be what are FSG's intentions, because if you want to compete and you want to challenge for the title again, Man City are probably going to spend a bunch of money as well. They've just done it in January now. So yeah, it is going to be really interesting. And I think that if Liverpool really want to stamp their authority and possibly keep challenging for the title, that's the key, because there's a big difference between
winning it once and sustaining it.
Yeah, and the expectations of, okay, can we actually challenge, or are we just going to be happy with Champions League football again? That's going to be the big difference. And I think that if they get it right, there's a possibility that they could disrupt the Guardiola regime, let's put it that way, because they've been so dominant, obviously, over the last 5 years. So
moving on, we've gone from the quite obviously brilliant Liverpool to we're going to be looking at some like the most underrated players in the league. We've got our top three. So Liam, you want to start us off?
Yeah, number one, I've gone for Anthony Robertson. He's played pretty much every Premier League game for Fulham so far. He's got the second highest assists in the league, which I didn't actually realise until doing some research for this video. But yeah, including 2 against Liverpool, as we mentioned before. And then he's currently got better return than Foden, De Bruyne and Trent. I mean, when you actually think about it, this stage into the season, if I was saying this in October, you might just be going, well, he had 2 good games. But that's pretty insane considering it's February.
I did think about your Ola Ainus, your Anthony Robinsons, but I thought they've been given some of their flowers recently, and so I've gone a bit more niche. I mentioned him in the last episode. Oh no, I didn't actually. I chose not to. Lewis Cook, in Bournemouth's injury crisis, he's really stepped up, and he's been a really pivotal player for them. Club captain, traditionally a central midfielder, but he's slotted in at right back ever since everyone at Bournemouth has become injured, and he's been brilliant. He's popped up with some assists, some really important goals. The Everton game at the beginning of the season springs to mind. But yeah, so my first one, I wouldn't say number one because these are interchangeable. I've gone with Lewis Cook, and also if I was to be bit crazy, bit controversial, I would say he deserves an England call up.
Really? Wow.
Okay, I think he's been that good.
Certainly says a lot about how he's performed this season as well. And I think, not to just bring it back to who I mentioned as well, but I think you could see Anthony Robertson possibly go for a bit of money towards in the summer as well.
As we mentioned, Liverpool need a left back.
Yeah, exactly. There's no better person, I don't think, than Anthony Robertson. So who's your second?
I originally wanted to get a midfielder, a defender, an attacker, and I've since realised that I haven't done that. But I've gone with Dean Henderson in goal for Palace. He's I think at the beginning of the season he was a little bit shaky. I wasn't that impressed with him, but I think he's really grown into the season, and as Palace have grown into the season as well. He's got 7 clean sheets so far this season. They've only conceded 30 goals in 24 games, which is pretty good considering they're 12th. I also think his form has also been that good that he won't displace Pickford in England just because he won't, because Pickford's England's number one. But I think form wise he is pushing Pickford. Yeah, and it's been nice to see the revitalisation of his career, because when he went back to United after having a good season and it didn't go well for him, I thought, it's going to be hard to come back from this, especially because he was so out of favour. But it's been Crystal Palace's defence has been really good this season, and a lot of people haven't really been talking about that. But they've got a really solid back line. Someone who narrowly missed out was 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶, who again he's been fantastic. Came in at the beginning of the season. Obviously, he gets all the plaudits that he gets because he is really good, and 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶 just ticks along and gets the job done. But I think if you speak to Palace fans, which I unfortunately live with one, so do you, he'll probably say that 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶's been their best defender this season.
For my second one, I've gone for someone that I've liked for quite a long time, to be fair. I really liked what he did at United, getting the move to Forest. I've gone for Anthony Elanga. I think he's been one of Forest's better players this season, obviously enjoying a lovely spell towards the top of the table this year. But yeah, got 5 goals and 9 assists in his last year for Forest, which is good for a first season, considering what Forest did last season. That's good. He's on 3 goals and 8 assists this season already, so he's matching his return already, considering it's only February, so you'd imagine that he's going to continue to push on from that. But yeah, He's only 22, which is really young when you actually think about it. And for that level of return, you think how much he's going to improve over the next couple of years as well. I just can't help but think that United must regret selling him so much, considering the injuries that they've had towards the top of the pitch, or people not performing. You'd imagine that if he was still at United, he would be one of the first names on the team sheet.
Be their best winger.
Yeah, and he only cost Forest 17.5 million, which you think if they were to try and sell him, they'd make a fair bit of money from that. But also, it's just a great bit of business.
Oh yeah, I mean, talking about Forest is great business. I mean, if you look at the other wing, Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's injured at the moment and kind of is playing brilliantly as well. £5 million. It's ridiculous. And their wingers are, 22 and 24? So, and then Chris Wood, I can't remember how much they signed him for, but I can't imagine they were particularly breaking the bank. They've made some really astute signings.
Yeah, and you could almost put their entire 11 into underrated 11 because it's that good, isn't it?
Yeah, and who have you got as your third?
Yeah, number 3 I've gone for... It's hard to call this person underrated because I'd probably say he's fairly rated now.
Mohamed Salah.
But it's Ronaldo. It's Bryan Mbeumo. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this year. But also he's been brilliant for like the last 2 years as well. Like I can't remember watching him and going, oh, he needs to work on a couple of things because he's one of the most prolific strikers in the league. His shot conversion rate's unbelievable. He can dribble and he can pass. There's not really a lot he can't do. He's also quite versatile. He can play on the right or he can play up front. I just think he's brilliant. 14 goals and 3 assists this season for Brentford, considering that he's not just the only goal scorer. Like Vis has been scoring goals for them as well. So it's not just everything has to go through him. He's a good team player and he brings other people into the game, which I quite like. And his attacking movement is also really good. But yeah, I think when Tony left Brentford, I personally thought that they're really going to struggle because I kind of perceive Brentford as not a one-man team, but certainly a lot of their attacking outlet came through Tony. But to see him and it's definitely his partnership with 𝗕𝗲 kind of evolve and kind of turn into probably one of the better ones in the league, considering for a duo. I think it's really impressive, and I think makes me underrated just because I think that people don't appreciate just how good he is, and it kind of surprised me that. I mean, Brentford said they weren't going to let any of their front 3 go, but Forest did put in a bid for 𝗕𝗲, and it made me wonder, why did no one put in a bid for Mbeumo?
Yeah,
because I can only see that his transfer fee is going to get higher towards the obviously end of this season, start of next season as well. And there are supposedly a couple of clubs, including Liverpool, I think possibly Newcastle, who are looking at him. But whether it happens or not, we'll just have to see.
And my third player is also a Brentford player. It's not Bryan Mbeumo, but I've gone for 𝗕𝗹𝗹. He's a joy to watch. He had kind of a breakout Euros tournament in, I think it was the Euro 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
Where he was fantastic for Denmark. And then he got his move to Brentford, and I kind of thought, ooh, that's quite a good signing. And then it was all a bit quiet, and I got a bit disappointed. But he's in the last 18 months, he's just absolutely exploded. He's been Brentford's Player of the Month 4 times this season. He's been Brentford's Player of the Month 4 times this season. He's got 8 goals and 2 assists. And I just think, again, if you speak to Brentford fans, they'd probably say Damsgaard has been their Player of the Season, because obviously Mbeumo and 𝗕𝗲, they get all the plaudits because kind of they're your strikers or your wingers, and they steal the headlines. But Damsgaard, he ticks things along. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he quietly goes about his business, as you say. He's one of the leading assisters in the Premier League as well, which again I don't think people quite realise just how good attacking Brentford have been this year. Yeah, so the thing, it'd be interesting to see how many of their players can they hold on to, because you'll imagine that club has already gone in for 𝗕𝗲. You imagine that some other clubs are going to be looking at Damsgaard and Mbeumo and possibly 𝗕𝗲 as well. So yeah, there's going to be a lot for Brentford to try and control going into next year. But if they can build on that, they could find themselves towards the European places. Maybe if they do things correctly and they hold on to the right players, I genuinely believe that Thomas Frank is a good enough manager to be able to push Brentford towards Maybe not Champions League football, let's not get silly, but definitely Conference and Europa League, which would be massive for Brentford.
Yeah, and I think kind of the Conference League is kind of, it's almost what kind of the Conference League was made for. It was made for kind of the smaller teams to have European kind of success.
Like West Ham.
Like West Ham. Chelsea being in it is a bit kind of like, not disappointing, but Chelsea going to walk it with their second team. Yeah. Like Palmer's only just been put into the Conference League squad, so kind of, and then I think Villa embarrassed themselves. I'm quite bold to say I think Villa embarrassed themselves in the Conference League last season when they got absolutely pumped by Olympiacos. I think kind of every Premier League team that qualifies for the Conference League should be disappointed if they don't win it, and I think that's kind of not. I mean, this is obviously such an English league bias, but I think it's kind of one of like the beauties of the competition. Like that, your Brentfords, your West Hams, they do get to kind of have a European run and win a European trophy.
Yeah, and it means a lot. You see what the Conference League win did for West Ham as a club, especially
made them a European giant.
Yeah, you'd like to see that. Yeah, Brentford could possibly build on that, and as you say. I think it's always good to just see competitions mean a lot. I think you're kind of seeing it with the 𝗕𝗹𝗵𝗶 Cup as well, that if Newcastle win that's going to be their first trophy in I don't know how long, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
Opposed to just Man City versus Liverpool, whoever wins it, I mean, it's a good day out. One. But it doesn't really mean anything. And come the end of the season, it won't mean anything for the manager. That's not going to be what keeps someone in a job or people remember them for. But for West Ham and for Brentford and teams like that, it's a good competition. And European football. You don't get to travel to Spain. Well, for the Conference League, you end up going towards the eastern side of Europe opposed to the western side, don't you? But yeah, no, I think it'd be nice to see Brentford up there, and I think they definitely could do it with some of the talent they've got. And I think, like Forest, they are just so good with business. Whoever is the director of football behind their transfers is just amazing. They seem to produce, or certainly develop talent. To an unbelievable level and spot talent early, especially. And even like they got Eriksen on a free. I mean, they took a chance on Eriksen, and then was then obviously poached quite quickly. But I think it just says quite a lot about Brentford really liking what they're doing.
Looking towards the end of the season, got some predictions. Got Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League, top four. Liam, I think it's quite an obvious one to start with, but who do you think is going to win the Premier League?
Yeah, I think. It's impossible to not say Liverpool, because if you don't say Liverpool, your brain's probably not there. That being said, I do think it might get a little bit interesting towards the end of the season. I think I could definitely see Liverpool dropping points, and I could definitely see Arsenal possibly pushing towards the title. But yeah, I mean, when you look at Liverpool and what they've been able to do this year, and especially their dominance in the Champions League, kind of just shows the pedigree of club they are compared to kind of the other clubs, and especially on a form basis as well. It's just impossible to not say Liverpool. That being said, who have you gone for to win the Premier League, Zach?
Nottingham Forest. No. Yeah. I have gone Liverpool. I think, interestingly, if a team is gonna push Liverpool, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Forest, because also Arsenal, they don't have Saka. They probably won't have him until kind of right at the end of the season, when it probably won't matter. So he might be out for the rest of the season because there's no point rushing him back. Havertz has just got himself a 2-month injury. Trossard is Trossard. Like their attack isn't kind of that amazing anymore. Kind of they've lost their main cohorts. And then like when you're such a defensively solid team and you've got no outlet to score, I think they will fall. I don't even think there's a title race, but I think they will fall out of the title race quite soon. And I think Forest will continue to push. And then I kind of think, like, that's what you've got for a title race. And I just don't think there's even that. I think Liverpool walk it from here.
Yeah, we could see it end quite early, as you say. Interesting, though, that you mentioned that you think Forest could be the ones to push Liverpool, because next our predictions are top four. I don't think Forest will get Champions League football.
Wow.
I think that they've been on an amazing run. They're obviously in third place now. It's going really well. That being said, I just think like towards the end of the season, I just can't see Man City not picking up some form.
Yeah.
And they've been dropping points. They lost so many games, obviously, during the bad patch towards November, December, and they've been slowly kind of building back up to some good form now. And I think that's only going to carry on going. I think my top four will obviously be Liverpool to win the league, Arsenal second. I've gone Man City third, Chelsea fourth. I think that it's not that controversial really when you think about it, but I just can't see Forest keeping it up and maintaining. I don't want to say that they're going to bottle it because that sounds really harsh, but I think you kind of saw with Leicester in the seasons that they were able to push for Champions League football, infamously in that one season, spent the most time in the top four out of any club, including the eventual winners of the Premier League, yet didn't get Champions League football. I think that's kind of going to be a similar story with Nottingham Forest.
I see where you're coming from, but I disagree. I genuinely think if City are going to push a team out the top four, I think it's probably Chelsea. I think it wouldn't surprise me if the top four went. I know I've just said I think Forest will push the most, but so I think obviously Liverpool first. I then think Forest and Arsenal are interchangeable, and then I think City. I think City do pull it together, and I think Chelsea kind of not fade away, but I think I think Chelsea are in a rut at the moment, and I don't really see them getting out of that rut anytime soon. They obviously will, but I just don't think it's going to pick up that quickly. I think you've always got the likes of Newcastle picking up again, and so I think top four will go Liverpool, Forest, Arsenal, City.
Ooh, okay.
Saying that, what I've just said about Arsenal's attack, you could see they have a disastrous fall off, and the wheels completely fall off, because also kind of at the end of the season it's not really that relevant to their on pitch form, but like Edu's leaving, he's going to Forest, so kind of this is the end of kind of football goes in kind of 3-year cycles, I kind of tend to find, and this is the end of kind of Arsenal's good 3-year cycle, and so they could either go out with a bang or go out with a whimper. I think it could, because of injuries, it could go out with a slight whimper.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And just touching back on Nottingham Forest, I hope that they do get Champions League football more than most people, I imagine. But yeah, no, it'd be good to see. Definitely be good to see them in the Champions League. And I think it'd be. I don't want to keep saying it's going to be interesting to see, but I think it genuinely is going to be interesting to see. Not necessarily who wins the Premier League, but I think having the top four race back, I think is actually one of the better things that the Premier League has to offer, is that push for Champions League, because if one of the top 6 clubs don't get it, it actually does mean quite a lot. That being said, if a non-top 6 club gets it, it is huge, and we kind of saw that with Newcastle being in the Champions League. Okay, they didn't really do a whole lot, but I did tune in to pretty much every game because I wanted to see them playing in probably the best competition that football has to offer. I think it'd be good to see Forest there, especially after that. You imagine that they're going to try and build on the success of this season and sign a couple of players.
But also important to mention, as it stands, I think England are quite comfortably winning the race for the 5th Champions League spot as well, because kind of doing well in Europa, everyone's still in the Champions League. Chelsea obviously walk in the Conference League, and so fifth isn't kind of, if a big 6 team did finish 5th, might not be the end of the world.
Yeah, might help Chelsea out come the end of the season. Eh? Moving towards the lower end of the table, who do you think is going to get relegated?
I think this is quite easy. I think Spurs finish rock bottom. I think it is the 3 up that came down. 3 that came up will go back down again, because there is just such a big quality gap now between the Premier League and the Championship, and kind of I think it wouldn't surprise me next season if the same thing happens again, because which will actually be quite damning of the Premier League, just kind of the amount of money that it almost makes it non-competitive, that kind of know someone who's a Southampton fan, and it's just like looking forward to winning games again. And it's like you come up to the Premier League and it's amazing, and then you have an awful time because you don't win a single game. And it's kind of the Premier League kind of have themselves this sort of problem that they need to fix, because you can't keep having 3 up, 3 down even.
Yeah, and it's typically going to become the same teams, especially with obviously the parachute payments and all of those things. You're looking at right now, it's looking like Leeds, Burnley and Sheffield United are all going to come back up to the Premier League, but they were the same 3 teams that went down again. So it's a bit depressing, I won't lie. That being said, I can't see many of the Premier League teams who aren't in the relegation zone ever going down, really. Like, I mean, Everton have flirted with relegation for the past couple of years, but I never really thought they were going to be in the Championship. Same for Wolves. I think obviously Palace at the start of this season kind of found themselves towards the bottom end of the table, yet now they're seemingly doing completely
quality
fine.
Just prevails.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how the Premier League fix it, but yeah, you're right. There definitely is a problem, because I think out of any prediction you could give, this is the most nailed on one. And Wolves had one of the worst starts, had a really bad start to the season because their fixtures were just unbelievably difficult. I still feel for Gary O'Neill, but yeah, I just as they now don't really look like they're going to go down. And yeah, I don't know whether Van Nistelrooy will stay with Leicester. I'd kind of imagine not. That being said, if he could try and build something and win a bunch of games in the Championship, you saw Maresca get a pretty good move off the back of that as well. So
Ruud van Nistelrooy getting the Leicester job, it kind of wasn't weird, but it was kind of like it didn't necessarily make sense, because it's like it's quite a big risk. Like, kind of, yes, Ruud did well in the Netherlands, and then was the Man United interim, but it's like you don't have, like, Leicester aren't a club that have the kind of the luxury of like, oh, we can try and start playing this expansive football. It doesn't really matter if we lose a few games doing it, because we'll finish mid-table. It's like you're in a relegation battle, mate. Like it did feel a bit odd, and it feels like Leicester fans aren't really taking to Ruud either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of not a match made in heaven, really.
Yeah, I think actually, all being said, I think one of the more crazy things that could happen this year, if Arsenal were to win the title, yet Ipswich, Leicester or Southampton were to stay up, I would be more impressed by the fact that one of those clubs has managed to stay up, just because of the position they're in and how hard it is just to stay in the Premier League.
Moving on away from the Premier League, FA Cup, kind of, we've spoken about how much we like it on the podcast. Who have you got to win it, Liam?
I think it'll be Man City, unfortunately. I don't think Man City are going to win in any other competition. I don't think they're probably not going to win the Premier League, and I don't think they'll win the Champions League either. So I think Pep will be keen to not focus on the FA Cup, but I think he knows that obviously you can still tick over with an FA Cup. It's still
a trophy.
Yeah, it's still a big trophy as well. Yeah. You saw it keep Erik ten Hag in a job
for 3 weeks.
just last season. Not that obviously Pep is in threat of getting sacked, don't get me wrong, but I think that just kind of shows that it still is a big competition and should be respected. But I think a team that might possibly win the FA Cup, if I had to go for an outside, would be Newcastle maybe. I think that with the fact that they've gone so far in the Carabao Cup, if they win that, I think that could, as we mentioned in the previous podcast, that could be a massive springboard. And certainly the fact that they're still towards the top end of the table as well. I think if they could get to a final, or at least get to both finals, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
I've gone to win
the annoying thing for kind of the other teams in it, that while City are in their rut, they've got Plymouth. So it's like they're like, yes, Plymouth beat Liverpool, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So I think it probably will be City. I think if you had it as like, if it was like City, Newcastle, City, Villa in kind of the next round, you go, this could actually be quite interesting, because City are in their rut. They're not winning a game anytime soon. But like City will walk all over Plymouth, and so I think if they can get out of their rut, which they eventually will, you'd like to think, well, or you'd not like to think, but so I think it is City, But I think I'd really like to see Bournemouth win it. I think kind of like they are kind of the outside, like the very, very dark horses. Like kind of when you've got City, Newcastle, Villa, like they're kind of your three front runners. But like plucky little Bournemouth, you know,
the black horses of the FA Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Red and black stripes, basically. Like. So yeah, I think it will be City. But if I was to go with my heart, I'd say Bournemouth.
But I think it's been nice to see the FA Cup kind of return to its glory, because I think it's only United and City who are the two like top 6 clubs that are still in the competition at round 5. I mean that's pretty incredible. I think you could see Aston Villa. Unai Emery's an absolute genius when it comes to cup competitions. We've seen that with his proficiency in the Europa League as well. So I think you can't rule out them as well.
Moving on, Champions League. You kind of mentioned you didn't think City were going to win it. Who do you think will win it?
It's a toss-up between Liverpool and Real Madrid for me. I think Real Madrid are just so prolific. Like even in the City game, like they seemingly they were probably the better side. Don't get me wrong, and probably deserve to win the game. But just like they just find a way every year, no matter what happens. I think maybe their front three hasn't been as electric as perhaps it might. People thought it might have been at the start of the season. But I think when you've got Mbappe, Vinicius, and Rodrigo up front, I mean, like, I don't think you're ever going to struggle to find the net. And then behind that, you've got Bellingham. I mean, it's just like it is ridiculous. I can't see. I think the only reason I wouldn't say Liverpool to win it is just because they do have to focus on the league as well, and they do have the Carabao Cup. I mean, not that they'll be thinking about that too much, but I think because they do have to focus on other things, and you know, they might. I don't want to say get tired, but like there's a lot going on for Liverpool. Not that there's not a lot going on for Real Madrid, but I just think that elite level quality going forward compared to Liverpool, who I'd probably say their only world class attacker is Salah, opposed to Real Madrid possibly having 3. I think that could get them over the line. What about you?
I've gone for a Spanish winner, and it was between 2, and the 2 did not include Real Madrid. I think I don't know why. I've just got this feeling. For me, it was between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, and I don't know why. I don't have a lot of logic to it, but Atletico Madrid are calling to me. They're going, Zach. I was going to do an accent, but I decided not to. Zach, we're going to win the Champions League, and I thought about it. You look at the league table; they're 2 points off top, a point behind Barcelona. Top 3 is Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and they're all separated by a point each. And then you look at their record against the teams. Drew with Real Madrid, beat Barcelona. I'm a big fan of Simeone.
Yeah.
And I think his really negative, boring style of football is perfect for knockout competitions. And kind of he's I'm going to contradict myself and say yes, he's never won the Champions League, but I think kind of with the form of Griezmann, the form of Alvarez, I think I don't know why, but I just think I think this could be his year.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see it personally. I'd love to see them finally get the trophy that they deserved. Probably going on a decade ago now. I think it's been impressive just to see Simeone still there and still putting up a good fight in all competitions as well.
Barcelona as well. Kind of their front 3 is kind of a bit mental at the moment. Kind of Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, Lewandowski. Like you kind of it's not the same kind of name as Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, but it's challenging them and it's putting out similar numbers, and kind of I really like that front 3, and I think Hansi Flick he's a really good manager, won Champions League already, and so kind of that experience as well could kind of carry them over.
I think I didn't really consider Barcelona, to be fair, but now you've mentioned that, I think that's definitely something that could happen. I think it's quite interesting to see that their front 3s are just so much more dangerous than I'd say most front 3s that the Premier League or other leagues have to offer. I'm not sure if that's another thing that people are thinking of, but considering that Atletico have then got, as you say, Alvarez and Griezmann, I can't see many teams being able to compete with that.
Before we go, last point. I want to give Frank Lampard his flowers, because this Coventry job was a really important job for him. It was quite a big seesaw moment for him, in the fact that his managerial career started so well at Derby, playoff final. Yes, they lost. Chelsea got to the FA Cup finals, top 4. Unbelievable time being a Chelsea fan under Lampard, until it wasn't, when he got sacked. And then when he came back to Chelsea, it really didn't go well. The Everton job some saw it as not going well, and some saw it as he did an okay job. And so this Coventry job was really important, because it wasn't defining whether he was a good manager or not, but it was Coventry took a risk with Lampard, and it's absolutely paying off. He's doing a fantastic job, which is why I just wanted to say big up Frank Lampard, which I'm sure he's absolutely gassed with.
He's still not going to shag you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just think he's doing a really good job, and I thought it deserved highlighting. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks for watching episode 2 of Behind the Ball season 2, and don't forget, get behind the ball.